Polkadot may be the most exciting development in crypto since the launch of Ethereum, while Solana bills itself as the solution to slow smart contract processing with transaction speeds up to 710,000 transactions per second. Meanwhile, you have Ethereum with the largest developer community of any crypto and the pending full launch of Ethereum 2.0 on the horizon, which could render those other cryptos obsolete. So which is actually the best crypto? Well, hey everyone, and welcome to FinTech. And in this video, I'm going to be comparing these three blockchains, Polkadot, Solana, and Ethereum, to try to determine which has the most potential to take over the world. Similar to my last video comparing Polkadot, Cardano, and Ethereum, I'll be going through and ranking the coins based on three categories: the speed and scalability of the networks, any unique features or mechanisms that one has over the other, and their future potential and progress toward their future plans. And that last category has changed dramatically for both Polkadot and Ethereum since my last video. By the end of this video, you should have a clear picture of the benefits of each chain and an understanding of which parts could actually change the world and what is just hype. So hit the like button if you want, and let's start with a brief overview of each crypto, starting with Ethereum. So most people are probably familiar with Ethereum as the second largest crypto by market cap and ground zero for all kinds of innovations such as smart contracts and NFTs. But not as many people may know that the Ethereum blockchain is currently in the process of upgrading to Ethereum 2. Ethereum 2.0 is exactly what the name suggests, a new and improved version of Ethereum brought to you by the original creator of the Ethereum blockchain, Vitalik Buterin. It takes all the most common criticisms of Ethereum, that it is too slow, too inefficient, and too limiting, and seeks to resolve those issues. But to guide us as we walk through the first comparison category, speed and scale, let's first take a step back right to the beginning of the blockchain. So Bitcoin is sometimes referred to as generation 1 of the blockchain. It launched way back in 2009 when Satoshi Nakamoto minted block 0 on the chain, and it allowed people to trade coins in a decentralized fashion, meaning you didn't need a central bank or organization to control everything. But it was also very slow, inefficient, and limited in its uses. Ethereum was the next step, otherwise known as Generation 2. Conceived in 2013 by programmer Vitalik Buterin and finally built in 2015 by a team of developers, Ethereum was an order of magnitude more useful than Bitcoin. In addition to having the Ether token for transactions, it added the ability to create smart contracts, paving the way for next generation blockchain tools that are built on top of the Ethereum network, including NFTs and other decentralized apps or dApps ranging from games to collectibles, like this weird toilet paper NFT from Charmin that uses the blockchain to make toilet paper a scarce resource. Like, we need more of that. But Ethereum still has its own issues. It's still relatively slow, only processing 30 transactions per second. It still uses a proof of work model, meaning to mine Ether, you need to use a lot of high-powered GPU farms that use up tons of electricity. And you're always restricted to the rules of the Ethereum chain. And from basically the beginning, Ethereum's founders have been aware of these limitations, and the community has been working on an improved chain which would solve them, which would be called Ethereum 2. But 6 years later, here we are still using the original Ethereum chain. And in the meantime, several competitors have cropped up looking to solve Ethereum's problems themselves. Generation 3 blockchains, such as Polkadot and Solana, completely throw out the old Ethereum chain and start implementing from scratch a new blockchain that addresses those limitations. Solana, for example, uses an innovative proof of history model to greatly improve transaction speeds, allowing them to theoretically support speeds up to 710,000 transactions per second once hardware improves. Though for now they are only running at 1,000 transactions per second, which obviously blows Ethereum's current 30 transactions per second or Bitcoin's 5 TPS out of the water. And Polkadot similarly vastly outpaces the original Ethereum network, with current projections suggesting that it could hit 166,000 transactions per second, and its founder Gavin saying it could scale up to 1 million transactions per second. Though with Polkadot, you can actually create other networks that run on top of the Polkadot network, and these parachains can have their own performance boosts that we'll talk about in a later category. But Ethereum does have the potential to compete with these Gen 3 cryptos with Ethereum 2, which is currently running as a beacon chain alongside the main Ethereum chain. Now, it's supposed to merge with the main chain in early 2022, and sometime later, once they introduce sharding, Ethereum will support up to 100,000 transactions per second. So these speeds, up to 710,000 TPS from Solana, 100,000 from Ethereum 2, and 166,000 from Polkadot, should effectively solve any bottlenecks for a long time down the road. Right now, Polkadot, for example, is only using around 157 transactions per second, even though it can support a lot more. And even the Visa credit card network only handles around 1,700 transactions per second, with a potential of around 24,000. But thinking long term, in the category of speed, I would rank Solana number 1, Polkadot a close second, and then Ethereum 2 behind that, purely because it is not as future-proof in terms of the base chain scale as the others, even though all three chains are plenty fast for the foreseeable future. But as this baby sloth will tell you, speed isn't everything. And this is especially true when we start getting to speeds faster than any network currently requires, which is where unique features starts to become a differentiator. After all, Ethereum's ability to run smart contracts, which all these other chains have now replicated, is what allowed it to stand out from Bitcoin in the first place. And similar differentiation may be the key to the next big crypto winning out. So let's compare the category of unique features. Looking at the Solana network, Solana is using a pretty unique proof of history model to help speed up its transactions. Proof of history is a concept laid out in a 2017 white paper by Anatoly Yakovenko, the founder of Solana. Proof of history is basically a way of speeding up the time to process transactions on a blockchain. With most other chains like Ethereum and Bitcoin, separate nodes in the blockchain need to communicate back and forth with each other constantly to keep track of which transactions are going through and when. This makes sure that transactions are processed in the correct order and everyone agrees on those transactions. Proof of history eliminates this back and forth by tagging each transaction within the chain with a timestamp to show when the transaction occurred, and then determining their order after they are received. We can think of other chains like bumper-to-bumper traffic. You start driving when the car in front of you moves, but you can't go until that traffic clears. Proof of history is more like a racetrack where every car can see the stoplight and they hit the gas all at the same time. Yeah, they might cross the finish line in a different order than when they started, but going back to Solana here, we can always look back at their timestamps and reorganize them into the correct order after they arrive. This means transactions can go through much faster without bottlenecks, and the look-back process can clean up any out-of-order transactions. Now, to be clear, we should distinguish proof of history from a consensus mechanism like proof of work or proof of stake. Bitcoin and Ethereum 1 used a proof of work model to validate transactions on the chain. Miners here have to solve complex mathematical problems to verify transactions on the network. But most modern chains, including Ethereum 2, Polkadot, and Solana, use proof of stake for their validations. With a proof of stake model, individuals can stake their ownership in a token to support the network instead, preventing all that computational energy from being wasted. So proof of stake is a consensus mechanism. It builds consensus, while proof of history is a tool for speeding up transactions. But Ethereum and Polkadot also have high transaction speeds, and they don't use proof of history. So how did they achieve this scale? Well, Ethereum 2 uses sharding, that's sharding with a D, where transactions settle on a bunch of smaller shard chains, and then the main chain aggregates those transactions from all the shards. We can kind of put this as a unique feature for Ethereum, but really Ethereum's biggest unique feature, at least among the three chains that we're comparing here, is its level of decentralization. While Ethereum and Bitcoin are both truly very decentralized, the same can't necessarily be said for Polkadot and Solana. Polkadot, for example, has a lot of pseudo-centralized governance structures like a central treasury, a council, and a technical committee. And the council will ultimately have 24 seats and actually has a decent amount of power. For example, if a validator who is supposed to validate transactions goes offline or misbehaves, their Polkadot is forfeit to the treasury. The council then has the power to pay those tokens back if they were taken erroneously, or use that money for something else. Solana, meanwhile, makes it fairly difficult to become a validator on the network, requiring pretty beefy computer hardware to join the club. And even though there are around 1,300 validators currently, in December 2020, a bug took the Solana network down for 6 hours. And in September, the entire network went offline again due to high traffic. And with a large percentage of the validator nodes being owned by the Solana development team, it raises some questions over its level of decentralization. Polkadot, meanwhile, has its own unique feature, which is the ability to build new blockchains on top of the Polkadot relay chain. In fact, Polkadot supports building 3 types of blockchains. blockchains. There's the relay chain, which is the main chain that processes transactions. There are parachains, which are custom blockchains that run on top of the Polkadot chain. These can be used to add new features to the Polkadot network over time. For example, Statement was an early common good chain that gave the ability for artists issuing NFTs or CBDTs, which are central bank digital tokens, to deploy their assets on the Polkadot network without using DOT tokens directly. The last type are bridges, which allow other existing blockchains such as Ethereum or Bitcoin or Cosmos to interact with the Polkadot network, cutting out middleman exchanges like Coinbase and almost creating an internet of blockchains. Though it is worth noting that Solana does have a very similar feature to these bridges called Wormhole that allows you to transfer information from one chain to another. And Ethereum 2 will supposedly offer a similar feature once sharding rolls out, but to be honest, the explanation for how that works was a little over my head. The Polkadot wiki has a decent explanation for anyone who's curious. So in terms of unique features, we have Polkadot with its parachains and running other blockchains on top of their network. We have Ethereum with sharding and strong decentralization. And we have Solana with its proof of history. So in terms of ranking these in the category of unique features, I'm going to give Polkadot the top spot. But deciding between Solana and Ethereum is a little harder. Decentralization is a big deal in blockchain, and it clearly helps the market caps of the bigger coins. But since Solana already has Wormhole built and working along with proof of history, while Ethereum 2 is still being rolled out, I'm going to give Solana the number 2 spot and Ethereum 3rd place here. Which leaves our last category of future potential, which I think of as what the ideal future would look like for each crypto and how likely those plans are to happen. And I think starting with Polkadot here makes sense. So Polkadot started launching parachains on their network on November 11th, 2021. But not just anyone could build a parachain. You first had to be selected by the community in a parachain auction. They do this using a bidding system. So right here we have parachains.info pulled up, and we can see different chains that are looking to win an auction right now. If you want, you can actually use your own tokens, basically loan them out, to vote for which project you would like to see win out. And if we click one of these, we can see what the description of the parachain is, and depending on who wins, you can get rewarded by the winning project for participating in that auction. In addition to the investment potential this provides for anyone who's willing to risk their DOT in supporting one of these projects, there is also the huge technical potential here for Polkadot. Because as new chains are added onto the network, it only improves Polkadot's functionality, addressing the historical issue of blockchains quickly becoming outdated as new projects launch. So the huge future potential here is pretty clear, since any new blockchain that comes out with a killer new feature can quickly just be added to Polkadot, which is why some people call Polkadot the future layer 0 of the blockchain that will run all of the other chains on top of it. Now, how likely is this to happen is harder to say, since right now Polkadot is sitting just outside the 10 largest crypto communities by market cap, indicating there's a ways to go if they plan to completely take over the crypto market. But kind of on the other end of the spectrum here, we have Solana. Solana does not have any huge blockchain improvements planned, but that's at least partly because the massive Solana developer community is very focused on making dApps right now, or decentralized apps. Everyone knows that an ecosystem is only as valuable as its killer app. And right now, Solana is rapidly producing new apps that can run on its very fast network. But while all modern cryptos, including Polkadot and Ethereum, can run dApps, what makes Solana unique is its use of the Rust programming language versus the Solidity language that most other chains use. Rust is a very fast programming language that is actually used outside of blockchain in enterprise and personal projects all the time. This gives Solana potentially a much larger pool of developers to pull from, and it offers performance benefits over programming in Solidity. At the same time, dApps written in Solidity are easy to copy from one blockchain to another. So if a developer wanted to run a dApp on multiple chains or to port their chain from, say, Ethereum, they would need to rewrite the entire thing in Rust if they want to use it on Solana. But if Solana does end up winning out as the go-to place to run these types of apps, its use of Rust could almost act as a moat from other blockchains. Of course, if it doesn't win out, it could also act as a liability, with their dApps being isolated from the Solidity-based chains. But based on the size of their developer community, this race might actually be pretty close. And then of course we have Ethereum, which on the surface seems to have the least future potential, but below the surface may actually have the most potential of any of these. Ethereum 2 is the big focus right now, moving from proof of work to proof of stake, improving transaction speeds with sharding, and hopefully encouraging widespread usage beyond just the crypto community in the coming years. While these improvements on a technical level might not seem as impressive as what Polkadot and Solana are doing, we have to remember the scale of Ethereum. Ethereum is the second largest crypto in the world, and the only real contender to possibly pass Bitcoin in market cap one day. So even if it doesn't have the most cutting edge features, if it is good enough for normal people to use, that might be enough. And this is supported by big companies using enterprise Ethereum for their blockchain solutions, or companies like Cloudflare designing an internet gateway product specifically for Ethereum. The so-called best technology doesn't always win. After all, Betamax was supposedly better than VHS in the 1980s, but no one makes memes about Betamax nostalgia. So Ethereum's real potential is becoming the de facto chain that we think of when we say the word blockchain, even over Bitcoin. So in the category of future potential, I'm going to put Ethereum in first, partly because they could become the biggest crypto, but also because their future plans are pretty much guaranteed to play out over the course of 2022. But if I'd made this video a year ago, it probably wouldn't be in first. Number two, I'm putting Polkadot because it does have the potential to act as layer 0 in the blockchain, and we're starting to see an uptake of new useful parachain projects. Last up, we have Solana, which does have a ton of potential in its dApp ecosystem, but less is changing on the chain itself. So to tally up the results. For scale and speed, we have Solana, then Polkadot, then Ethereum. For unique features, we have Polkadot, then Solana, then Ethereum. And for future potential, we have Ethereum, then Polkadot, then Solana. If we give 3 points for first place, 2 for second, and 1 for third, that would give Ethereum 5 total points, Solana 6 points, and Polkadot 7 points. But that's only if we weight the categories evenly, which probably isn't fair since it puts the speed at the same level of importance as unique features. And as we discussed, all of these will eventually have plenty of speed for the foreseeable future. Honestly, I think a more balanced ranking here would be to put Polkadot at number 1 and then put Ethereum at number 2 with Solana following up close behind. Not because Solana isn't a good project, but because it's not as unique as Polkadot and not as impactful as Ethereum, at least today. And since part of the ranking is based on the likelihood of success, I think Ethereum is at least slightly more likely to win out over Solana in the long run. Now, this ranking is totally different from how it would have looked 1 year ago, and in another year it might look totally different again as changes are made to these chains. But let me know how you would rank these 3 cryptos. And if you sign up for Voyager using the link in the description, you'll get $25 in free Bitcoin when you trade, and you can stake both Polkadot and Solana there to get some free interest. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.